Hi, and welcome back to History Beyond Virginia's Textbooks. This is Kira speaking, and today's topic is going to be on public psyche in New Jersey surrounding the amusement park, Action Park, that was open throughout like the 90s, 80s, early 2000s. Yeah.
I'm Sydney Pham.
I'm Sid Cope.
And I'm Rohit.
So the entire concept was adrenaline rushes. The entire concept was no rules. The experience is on you. You'll get out of it.
You know.
Yeah. The experience, you create your own experience was the entire concept. So there was a lot of more dangerous rides. There wasn't a lot of safety precautions, and there were multiple deaths. But the park still remained in New Jersey as something that most people think back fondly on. So I just wanted to talk about how like public psyche can affect that, and then more of just like one of the things I noticed was more of just like glorification of youth, because a lot of people saw it as a rite of passage in their teenage years of like, oh, I survived Action Park over the summer and stuff like that, and like going on school field trips there and stuff, and people weren't really scared because and I feel like that was also due to like the illusion of like, oh, it's a water park, like every water park I've ever been to is safe, so it kind of created that illusion because you were in that space. But how it stayed of just like the glorification of like surviving Action Park as a teenager. So
Yeah, once you said no rules, I got scared like immediately.
Yeah, no, action parks need a little bit of regulation.
there wasn't very many rules. There were some in place. Like you would see a sign before you went onto it, be like, go at your own risk. This is how you should be doing it. If you don't do it this way, that's on you, bestie. Like,
I just don't know how they go through. How do they get money? How do they not get a lawsuit?
I mean, a lot of the people just enjoyed the things that they had, but
I feel like back then, people didn't sue other companies as much.
yeah.
It's definitely
nobody
like
cared
a rising
as
thing.
much.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially it's important to look at societal context in that time of people were a lot less like,
They were so much more lenient.
yeah, they were less concerned about getting hurt and stuff like that. I think it's just really interesting. So,
Yeah.
So like, what made them dangerous? Like, could you describe one of the rides?
So one of the rides this is a famous one that people were famously hurt on and people died on, was the Alpine slide. And what it was like a half crescent tube of concrete and fiberglass that went down a hill, and you would get onto a little slide, like a little sled type thing with wheels on it, and you would just go down. No protection, no nothing. Just slide down the slide, and then you get in and you land on like hay bales. And the sleds did not have braking mechanisms. If you wanted to go faster, you could push your handle forward and it would lift the wheels up more, so you would go faster down it. But there wasn't a braking mechanism. All you did was just not accelerate. They would put multiple people on the slide at once, so there were potential crashes, people who wanted to go faster, people who wanted to go slower, and there was no braking system. Their foot would fall off, would like go off the sled, and they would get like really bad burn from it because it was concrete and fiberglass. And then there was the people who fell off, and there was someone who fell off, rolled into a tree, broke their neck, and that's one of the people who died on the Alpine slide. And it was very dangerous, and people still have scars. And like what it would do, as you know, rope burn, it would do a more extreme version of that, and it would just like take layers of skin off. And my dad got things like that, and he would look at it, and it was just normal. It was just expected. And it wasn't like, if you saw that at a normal amusement park nowadays, it would be like, oh my God, and staff would be coming over, and like it would probably become a whole big event. But it wasn't, because that was what was expected. If you left, talking to my dad, because I did interview my dad as part of my project, if you left Action Park without any types of bruises or scrapes, you did not actually go to Action Park. Was like the common sentiment of like, you had to get hurt or else you didn't genuinely experience what the park was about.
Okay then.
Wow.
It's kind of insane.
That's reminding me of some haunted houses where like they actually try to hurt you.
Yes.
You have to sign a waiver.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like there were children going there was adults going there. Like my grandmother went down a slide, and the slide had like a couple foot, like she was younger, she was in like her 30s, whatever, and the slide had a couple foot drop into the pool. She went off it and she wasn't sitting on it just right, so she skidded completely across the pool and landed in like hay bales on the other side of the pool that they had there just in case. Their safety precaution was hay bales, and just like skidded right over the pool and landed in the hay bales and like got hurt.
That would hurt. That would definitely hurt.
Even the pool would hurt. Like if you land wrong in the pool,
Yeah.
it's still gonna hurt.
Yeah.
I just don't know how. As a parent, how do you send your kid?
I know.
Well, this was back then. So
No,
like,
but
I
just
mean,
because it
you've
was back then
seen-
didn't mean that they didn't care about their children.
Yeah.
They didn't care about their safety.
They saw all the news articles about who's died, the injury. Like
There
or
was-
at least something. They've seen something that is negative about this place,
Yes.
and they still went.
Yeah, and there was like, you know those rides that you go to at like a regular amusement park where you see where it's like you're kind of on like a tube and you go through water, and one of those rides. They had one like that, except it was a kayak, and there was a track and it used electricity.
wait, what?
There was a couple loose wires. Someone flipped over in their kayak, fell into the water, accidentally touched a wire, and died from electrocution
That's
in one of
wild.
the rides. And there was never money overhauls to the system unless they absolutely had to.
I feel like this is just a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Like I feel like talking about psyche, this is just someone manipulating the public to be like, this is, well, they kind of, the public kind of manipulated themselves, but like they are convincing themselves that this is a good idea. Even if all of the odds are against this thing, they are
They're
persistent.
like, it's okay.
Yeah, they're actively ignoring all of the signs that say that they can't do this thing, and just because they can't do this thing or that it would be dangerous, they actively go out of their way.
Yeah.
I feel like it wouldn't be science anymore. They're just trying to prove themselves to others.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like it's just manipulation of
Yeah.
each other's minds because it's just like, well, you have to do this thing because otherwise you're not a man. Like
Yeah, that's the whole thing with like the peer pressure and like the surviving action park thing is like if you didn't do it, well then you're lame and you're weird. But like it's like it was the peer pressure to
You're
do
a
it
chicken.
or else you were a chicken. Yeah. And so people would like make fun of you if you didn't participate.
so stupid.
So it's so weird
Yeah.
of just how like this was so dangerous. People were still doing it.
It's like those, like in movies, you see like teenage guys like in high school. They're all like, "Oh, you're so lame because you won't do this." It's kind of the same concept.
Yeah.
And, like the way you're describing it, it's like the same concept of that high school
bullying each other.
childish.
But like
idiocy.
there was
Yeah.
also it was such an adrenaline fueled experience that my dad remembers like not even feeling scared because there was so much adrenaline that he was feeling that like I just didn't notice how dangerous it was. They just didn't think about it.
They're like, eh.
I mean, I feel like that's also a part of like the corporation that built it. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew what kind of effect this would have and how dangerous it was.
Okay, so our podcast stopped recording, so we're gonna pick back up where we left off. But we were just talking about how it's so insane that like all of the peer pressure
Yeah.
and how it played into it.
And how that the corporation that made this park definitely knew the risks and still went ahead with it
Yeah, and there's even like
just to make money,
Capitalism.
just to
yeah.
just to I don't know. I suppose it's an experience. I suppose that there is some sort of like
For like adrenaline junkies.
I guess
The
like
thriller people.
like I don't know. At least if you're like jumping from an airplane, there's someone behind you to like catch your fall
That's
or
true.
like have the equipment ready.
Yeah.
There's always something that like there's so many better ways to do that, and I don't know. It seems like such an
And then Kira mentioned a. Were you done?
it's so stupid. That's what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
Yeah. Kira mentioned a slide where you would like go down and then you would end in a pool with a couple of feet.
Yeah,
It
where
is,
she just skidded over the surface and landed in the hay bales because
Yeah.
the physics of it was so bad.
Yeah, and like it was a big drop into the pool. And I was saying like, well, we all said that the hay bales are kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And then
That's the safety measure.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was the
And like even they interviewed old lifeguards, and they remember like they've talked about like, oh yeah, it was normal to have to save like multiple people like in like actual drowning. Especially they had a wave pool, and I believe it was one of the first wave pools like in America, and it was like salt water and the waves are really big.
Salt water.
And so people would constantly like almost drown in there. So like they had
Basically
to put more
drown.
lifeguards over there because they didn't stop running it. They just put more lifeguards over there. So that way when when inevitably you had like 5 people on one shift who like started drowning, you at least had more lifeguards there to help save them.
well, why would they close the ride? They want more money.
Exactly. So I feel like it also kind of speaks to like capitalism and corporations just like not giving a crap about actual people.
The customers.
Yeah.
And also workers as well, because like
Yeah.
now these
I mean,
lifeguards are stressing.
you're definitely putting the employees in danger when you're
At some
Especially when
risk,
it's
yeah.
usually teens working a summer job and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that who are there as lifeguards.
Yeah, and like they're getting stressed out by this guy's dying right in front of me.
Yeah,
There's
no,
a guy
that's-
dying over there, and then that's like happening multiple times a
trauma.
day.
That's definitely trauma that the employees probably have to deal with, or
Yes.
I would feel that it would.
Corporations,
trauma.
man. I mean, like, not as extreme of a case, but like I work somewhere that's like corporate, and like they don't give a crap about their employees. Like
Yeah.
we don't, because it's not required by law in the state of Virginia. We don't get breaks. There aren't limits on how many hours you can work. So when I first started working the job, I was working like 37 hours a week on top of my normal schoolwork. And it was absolutely insane. Like I had to go in and tell them like I cannot be working this much. Like if I don't get less hours, I'm gonna quit. And that's when like my managers finally fixed it. But like they could not give a crap about any of their employees as
Yeah.
long as they're pushing out product.
Yeah, but that's like corporate. That's companies,
Corporate
mass
greed.
production ish.
Capitalism,
like,
man.
corporate-
Corporate
Yeah.
greed.
And it's
Yeah.
definitely gotten better since like corporations first started. At first,
Well,
it was obviously
There's more
physical.
legislation for it now.
Yeah, they're covering their
regulations.
behinds.
Which in some
Yeah.
states they're trying to repeal to reduce the legal working age. Child labor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already technically child labor, but
Yeah,
it's not.
I'm a child.
Yeah.
We're all children.
But yeah, I was gonna say like it was a lot more physical danger, and now that we're pushing towards like
You're small.
mental
Go
health.
climb in between those factory machines. I can't reach in there.
Yeah. So yeah, now we fixed most of the physical dangers, and now we're trying to fix the mental dangers of most jobs.
Yeah.
So
Because I
Yeah.
mean, like, I've looked at my manager and gone, like, no one in the dining room. I'm working front counter. I feel lightheaded, like I'm gonna pass out because I've been working for 6 hours straight and I haven't eaten. And I look at him and I go, hey, do you mind if I take like a 10-15 minute break just to like grab a snack from the kitchen and go sit down since we're not busy? And him just look at me and be like,
No.
we don't give breaks. No. As I literally tell him, like, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. And just like utter lack of care for anyone is just, it's astounding. And I feel like that like runs in so many corporate run places. And Action Park was not like a corporation, but it was definitely owned by like these big rich people who just like didn't care as long as they were making the profits. And they definitely played into the whole adrenaline junkie experience.
Yeah, that's what it's literally just public manipulation.
Yeah.
It definitely, like, your situation in your job definitely, like, resembles a lot of the corporative stuff going on, even if it's such,
Small scale.
Yeah, small scale, so personal. It directly resembles Action Park and, like,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And it's so insane. And how, like, even now, even by modern standards, a lot of the adults that I know who went to Action Park, they still remember it fondly. They still remember, like, oh yeah, that was fun. Like, maybe I got hurt, but like I was fine.
Manipulation.
And like they still don't think of it as something dangerous. And yeah, it's a change in times, it's a change in sensibilities, but it's also just like it affect like they had such a hold on them.
Yeah.
And the public.
Yeah.
That like as a whole, New Jersey still just like doesn't really think of it as like, oh my God, how did we ever do that? That's so horrible.
yeah, I just had an idea like. Nowadays there's like changes in body image and stuff, so like what if body image back then maybe around New Jersey was like you getting hurt and everything. I guess that's like what we've been trying to say, but like, you know.
I mean, there are definitely some things of like, oh, I'm so tough. I did this. This is why I'm so cool.
Like,
Yeah.
and having a
these scars that I
broken
have.
arm is
Yeah.
like cool all of a sudden.
Oh my god, I have a cast. Everyone's
Yeah.
gonna pay attention to me in school now.
Yeah.
And then nowadays, like, you know, like maybe skin, for example, like, you know, you got to have like clear skin and like smooth skin or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like back then, maybe men, like, you know, it was normal, or it was, you were weird if you didn't have calluses or, you know, rough skin or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because then it's like, you're so sheltered. Why don't you leave your house?
Yeah.
And now
It's-
it's
it's
like, you have
definitely-
calluses? What are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you do on the weekends?
It went from people looking like they did things to people looking like they didn't do things.
And I mean, that can also depend on like generational shift too, because I feel like a lot of generations tend to go directly against what the generations before them did, just in terms of just like opposition. It's always going to be there. That's like, even just like as like on such a micro scale as like people who are raised with really neat parents tend to become slobs. People who are raised by slobby parents tend to become very neat. And just like things like that people tend to do the exact opposite of what came before them, just as like an act of like individualism and defiance. So it makes sense that that would be like complete shift, complete change in the other direction, generationally.
Yeah.
Should we back up maybe?
I mean, yeah, we're gonna take a break in the middle and we will finish up this episode next time, and then this will be the last episode. So yeah, we will finish up this episode and come back. So for you guys, it won't take any time. For us, it'll take about 4 days. So we'll see where we pick up, and we will see you guys when we get back.
Yay.
We're back, and I believe we left off talking about different body images and how it's changed over time. And I feel like that also speaks to like societal standards and how social standards have changed over time. Children were going outside more a lot and like being trusted to go do their own thing more so. Nowadays, it's kind of considered irresponsible by society if a parent leaves their child unsupervised like at all, even if it's just like a nearby park or like
Yeah.
their front yard or something. People have like called the cops or something because there's an unsupervised child, but they're literally just in their own front yard.
Yeah. No, I've seen like a lot of things that like even in movies that like take place later, like in the 90s or something, everybody was so much more lenient. Like kids were going places on their own at the age of 12 in those days, in the old days.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, times have changed too in terms of not even just perceived safety, but like actual safety in the United States. I feel like a lot of the United States just, it's not as safe for children as say like other places, like in other countries. They still are like that, and like little kids can go out.
Yeah, like I know Japan,
Yeah.
like kids go run errands alone.
Yeah, there's like
And they're,
TV
like-
shows based on their first errand, and
Yeah.
they're like 3, and they're really cute. But because one of the things that I've seen is that saying that like the society as a whole decides that it's their collective responsibility to keep the children safe, so the parents feel good enough letting their children go out. Whereas in America, that hasn't been decided, and there's a lot of hostility still towards children. I mean, obviously, there's dangers everywhere towards children. It's not like the world is going to be 100% safe for everyone all the time, but it's particularly hostile here, so a lot of people feel like they
Especially
can't go out.
now, like shooting and all
Yeah,
that
and
good
also
stuff.
just like
Yeah.
kidnappings in general and trafficking. There's a bit of that around here.
But I
Yeah.
also feel like most of that, it's interesting because it's not like any of that has actually like changed. There's always been that, but I feel like there's much more publicity about it, especially because of
Yeah.
social media. There's a
gets
lot more. It gets told, and like there's a fascination with true crime, and there's a fascination like
Yeah.
not even in like parents, but in society as a whole. There's been such. I'm not saying that it's not interesting because I personally really enjoy it, but and I'm kind of, that's usually not great, but I'm just speaking as a whole. Like there is definitely more of a focus on like crime, and there's more focus on like gory things, and that has definitely influenced my childhood. Because
Especially crime as like a whole. I feel like it used to be a lot of like focus on like theft and like protecting the youths from like gangs and stuff like that is something that I've seen in like newspapers and all this stuff. that people used to publish about, what was it called, super something, some type of criminal that was supposed to like take over whatever that was in newspapers that someone from Harvard published.
I have no idea.
That thing.
It's not super villain. What is it? I know what you're talking about.
Supernatural.
Supernatural's a show.
But
I know, like,
things like that like but now every type of crime, especially the like heinous ones, get so much publicity and airtime that people see it so much more, and it can tend to make people more anxious. Especially, I feel like society as a whole has higher levels of like anxiety these days.
Yeah.
As a whole,
I
especially
wonder
younger
if it's
generations.
because, like, kids now, or kids that were being born, like, within the past 5 years, all of their parents have, like, grown up in the age where technology is becoming, like, where they saw where technology was dangerous and then, like, how it gradually got safer. But I wonder if that fear of, like, technology and, like, for being predatored on the internet has
Yeah.
influenced the
Yeah.
way that we are now.
Yeah, technology in general just spreads news fast, like we were saying. Like, there's a lot more news because a lot more people can get to the news, right?
Yeah.
So, everybody's got their computer, if not a TV, radio. Radios
Yeah.
are definitely dying out, but
And it can make things so much easier for people to have access to other people in terms of like dangerous people and predators and stuff and all of the catfishing type things. I mean, that's why my dad always used to make a point on being like, don't do this, don't talk to strangers on the internet,
Yeah.
don't do it. And if
Yeah.
you do this, like telling me stories to scare me out of talking to people online and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, so going back to my point earlier, with my childhood in specific, just talking about from my experiences, my mom was always a really big like true crime junkie before it was like cool.
thing, yeah.
Before it was
So were my parents.
yeah, so that like I remember one time in elementary school I was talking about how I don't have any upper body strength and how like all my muscle is in my legs, which is not like something that you would think about, but my mom had responded with, well, you need to build up muscle so that if you need to get away from someone, you can like climb over. I'm not even joking.
No.
You can climb over like a fence or whatever to
My
get
dad
away
would
from
say stuff like
someone.
that, too.
And it's such a different thinking. That's such a
Yeah.
different like. Not to talk about like the repercussions of that in my mind or anything like that, but just like stuff like like you think kids in the parents in the 90s are thinking about their kids needing to run away from someone if there's
Yeah.
like an intruder or if there's no. And I also think with the perceived notion of like, oh, this is fun, oh, this is this is something that is enjoyable, that's what the parents are getting, that's what the parents are being like talked about.
I mean, even without true crime, my parents have always watched so many like cop shows. Like
Yeah.
that's what like it's on the TV is either news, cop show, or game show. And if my dad's not home, it's a Hallmark movie. Those are the only things that are ever
Hallmark
watched
movie? That's
in my
wild.
house by my parents. But I've grown up watching like crime shows, and not even like crime shows like there are crime shows like The Rookie and stuff like that are newer, that are like a lot less like gory, that just like I don't mind watching them. But also growing up watching things like SVU and like Criminal Minds and stuff like that like
So it's
leaves an impression on your mind to see all that stuff, to know that even if though it's fiction, stuff like this actually happens. And it like kind of made like my anxiety a lot worse in terms of like going out places and always being concerned. Like I don't like going out at night and all. Like even I've made jokes of like I don't like parking my car on the street and then having to walk down the driveway and open the garage and everything when I'm getting home at like 11 o'clock at night from work and stuff like that, because I've seen so much of that in my brain I'm like, I'm gonna get kidnapped, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Honestly, same. I feel the exact same way. My friend lives right down the road, so like sometimes we walk. Like if we stay out late, we walk each other to our houses. And even then, like I'm kind of scared. It's not even that long of a walk. It's like a 2-minute walk at most.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say that, like, with the technology, with the technology and everything, I think that has really changed our perception as a society of safety.
Yeah.
And like going back to the action park, if we think about like what exactly the parents are getting fed, like obviously we talked about the news reports of like people dying, but if your kids are coming home and they're being like, oh my gosh, this was awesome, oh my gosh, this was so cool, you know, that's what they're getting. That's their perception of the park.
Yeah, and I
so
mean, like, it's not to say that like parents back then didn't care about their kids. Like they were seeing these news reports, and there was a lot of people that were concerned, and that, I mean, that's the reason the park isn't open today. Like obviously concerns were raised, because I feel like we're kind of making it sound like they just didn't care at all. Like there were no standards of safety. Like they were just different, and people tended to have like a higher tolerance for people going beyond those standards for longer periods of time before they actually did something about it. I wanted to clarify that. I feel like we're kind of making it sound a little bit like there was no standards and people just didn't care.
I mean, it's just different perception. If that's what your kids are, like, your kids aren't thinking about the other things. They're thinking about how fun it is. They're not concerned about anything else because they have nothing else to be concerned about. They're just kids. They're just having fun.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in that sort of sense, you can just say, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with the park because if the kids are having fun, then it's worth it. But I mean, people were dying. Like people were getting seriously hurt and dying. So
yeah, and it was also adults, like, you know, having fun somehow.
Yeah.
So, you know, parents were also seeing that.
Yeah.
You know, their friends going.
Yeah, and then not making it out of the park. I don't know. It's such a crazy like phenomenon to me that people would. I don't know. I've already talked about how crazy I think this is, but I don't know. It's just really, really. I don't know how you can go to a park where there's so little safety precautions and literal death, and then B, send your kids or have like your parent or whatever said like have kids there, and then be getting hurt on these rides. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, and then people didn't really realize until someone they knew died, probably.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then they realized,
Were there any lawsuits?
There were.
Okay.
There were lawsuits, but there was also like waivers that people signed and stuff like that.
Waivers.
And for some things, not for everything, but they also had so many signs up that would tell people like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do this, and if you don't do it this way, then that's on you. So they would use that argument of like, well, there was this one sign before the ride that tells them exactly how to do it, and just because they decided to do this differently doesn't mean that that's our fault. Like things like that.
Loopholes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Lovely.
those things are definitely not good arguments today.
No.
Because,
Didn't Mr. Hughes say something about like waivers not actually counting?
yeah.
That's bull
That was-
crap. A lot of waivers are legally Mr. Hughes is wrong. A lot of waivers do matter, especially legal waivers. Like, especially when you get away from like the theme park aspect, there are waivers in all sorts of things. Like if you go skydiving, if you're taking horse riding lessons, if you're taking like anything like that, you're signing a waiver, and it is legally binding, saying that like if you get injuries, like I've had to sign that for horse riding lessons. It is legally binding to say that I'm responsible for any injuries that happen on your person.
Of course. I don't know how you can have a successful business and not be like having waivers or anything, especially for the action park like that.
Yeah.
Like you have to. That's like how you cover your behind, because otherwise like if people are dying and then they're like, oh, sorry, we actually didn't let them know that this was dangerous. Like
I don't know. That would get you. That would definitely get you in.
I was gonna say, sorry. The terms and conditions that we sign for like all of the Apple things, or if you have an Apple, you know what I'm talking about. Like, and even the terms and conditions of like signing something just online. There's always terms and conditions for everything.
Everything has terms and conditions, not just Apple.
Well, but that was just an example that I had noticed, because you have to physically scroll
literally
down.
Read, like it's reading in between the lines.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. So it was just another application to the what was it called again?
Waiver.
Waiver. I was about to say warranty. That's not the right word.
I love it, but
I mean, it's not like it was only people from New Jersey.
yeah,
going to
no,
this
it was,
park.
it was definitely
people
like a
were
tourist
traveling.
attraction.
It was a tourist attraction. People were traveling to go there, and it became one of, for the time period that it was there, it was one of the like defining places for
Yeah.
people to go. And there was like adrenaline junkies from all over
Oh, yeah.
who would travel just to go there, and people who are adrenaline junkies right now who like know about it and like are like fascinated by it. Like I've talked to people at work that like, I remember talking to one of the NRO trainers at work, new restaurant opening, when we first opened at Cane's. Yeah. And we were talking about something, and I like it came up that he was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I said like, "I'm from New Jersey." And he was like, "Wasn't Action Park in New Jersey?" And like he liked adrenaline, and he knew what the park was, and like we had like a conversation about it. That like people who are into that type of stuff, like it's popular and like
It's a drug.
infamous for being one of the places that was good for that like you could go.
That's weird. I
That was
never knew
legal and
Yeah.
somewhat regulated, at least.
The regular
Somewhat, a little bit, kind of.
I wanna go
Not
back-
much.
I want to go back to lawsuits for a second. There was a park recently, like maybe a year ago, where some kid died, and there was like whole lawsuits and everything just after that one death.
Oh my God.
And I just wanted to mention that, like,
The difference
How
between
do you make a successful business when
and yeah, the parents were like
People
blaming
don't
it.
care.
It's crazy to me. It's absolutely insane. How
It's
do you?
ignorance is bliss is literally
Yeah.
That's why I want to talk
entire
about it, because
thing.
it's just so fascinating that how the public was just like, it's fine.
Like, out of all of these things, out of all of the red flags that is, what is it called? Something flags.
Red flags.
Six Flags.
No, Six Flags. That's what I was thinking about. All of the red flags that are coming out of this place, and all the things that are being advertised about it, and all of the just everything about this park is just so.
It just screams no.
But people, but people
Yes.
had fun,
Yeah, but it was
and that's
fun.
all they really cared
It was
about.
fun, guys.
And that's all that the teenagers really cared about, was that they were going and they were having fun, and they were
It was.
Yeah.
considered one of the normal ones, because it was kind of weird to not want to go and to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think honestly, if I was there right now, I'd probably be like, I kind of want to.
I kind of want to go just to
Yeah.
see what it's about. I'm kind of curious.
That would be me. I would be that
Blood
person.
curdling, blood curdling
Guys
screams.
Guys going down the
Guys?
freaking
Oh,
slide.
oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my parents would say no.
I mean,
My
I would
parents-
say
My
no to
parents would let me.
myself.
I asked my dad when I was interviewing him, I was like,
Would you let me go?
would you let your children go? Would you take your children there? And he still said, yeah, he would take his kids there because he had fun. And he
Yeah.
was like, it's fine. Like,
It's the
you
same
know
thing.
how to. He especially said, he was like, for you guys, you know how to like not die on a ride. You'll be fine. Like things like that, that it was treated as like common sense to know, just like.
It's the same thing.
If I'm
It's the
going down this
same
slope
thing.
at 35 meters per second, what is that?
But
Possibility
like
I'm gonna
asking
die.
What is Mew?
and him just being like, no, I would still let you guys go because like you're not gonna be stupid. And as long as you weren't stupid, like a lot of the rides like you were gonna be fine on, but there
Yeah.
was just those chances.
There's probably
And I'm not fine. You weren't gonna die if you weren't being stupid, but there was still things that would like give you like a rope burn and like
Yeah, I mean,
scrapes and scratches, and people broke so many bones that like you were still gonna get hurt, but you weren't gonna die if you weren't being stupid. Yeah. I mean,
felt
that was
pretty
all. We just had like conversation about like public
People.
differences in societal standards as times have changed, and different like public acceptance levels of different things. So yeah, that's gonna be it. And that is going to be the last actual episode of the podcast. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Yeah, at least I hope you got something out of this. And I hope you guys, like, I don't know, continue to do your own research and try to keep yourself educated on different topics that you feel matter to you. Be on your own time and make sure that you're, as we've said, check your sources, do all that stuff. And try to stay educated. Edumacated.
Important.
that is the most
Yeah.
powerful tool.
Educate. No.
Thanks for
Knowledge
hosting,
is
Carol.
intent.
Yeah, and that's gonna be all.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. We got there.
And that's
Yeah.
gonna be all. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.